Welcome to another episode of Murders, Mysteries, and More. My name is Kaylee.
My name is Desi.
Today we'll be talking about what happened to Veronica Reyes Diaz.
Veronica Reyes Diaz was a 23-year-old mother to 3 children from Tampa, Florida. She was born on June 7, 1996. Her parents are Fendencio Minajares and Tina Quartez. She has 2 sisters and a brother. When Veronica was young, her parents got a divorce. It was really hard.
Her family says she was full of life. Her family and friends know her to be intelligent. Veronica had some rocky relationships. She got pregnant with 2 little boys. She ended her relationship with their father. She absolutely adored her children.
December 8th, 2018, Veronica married the love of her life, Fransico Reyes. Not long after they tied the knot, she was pregnant. She now lived in a mobile home community near Dover, Florida. Fransico worked at a construction company while Veronica stayed home with their babies.
Friday, January 17th, 2020, Veronica made plans to hang out with her friend Mariah that night. Her husband was unhappy about her leaving the house. She was going to go out regardless. Mariah picks up Veronica and 2 of her kids.
They headed to Veronica's sister's house, Victoria, to drop off 2 of her kids. Mariah and her went to Chili's in Tampa, Florida. After a while, Fransico started blowing up Veronica's phone. 12:30 a.m., she received her last phone call from Fransico.
1 a.m. they decide to head home. After that, Mariah drops Veronica off. Veronica gets in her red SUV to pick up her 2 kids from her sister. On the way to her sister's, police pull her over. One of her taillights were out. She texts Mariah, then goes back to her sister's to pick her kids up.
Veronica arrives back home at 1:45 a.m. 6:30 that morning, Fransico realizes that his wife is gone. He asks his oldest son about Veronica. He says Mommy tucked him in and she went outside.
He decides to go outside to check on her. He doesn't see Veronica, but her SUV is still there. He finds all her belongings in the car except for her cell phone. Fransico doesn't freak out. Instead, he decides to go fishing.
Veronica's family didn't find anything out until the next day. January 19th, 3:30 p.m., he gets a question from her father if he knows where Veronica is. Her family is confused as to why it took so long for him to say something. Monday, January 20th, he reports Veronica as missing.
The police tell him he shouldn't bother reporting her because she's an adult. Despite the lack of support from the police department, Veronica's family decides to hold a search party. She is still missing to this day.
Here are some unanswered questions. Why did Fransico wait 2 days to report his wife as missing? A reason why he could have possibly waited so long to report her as missing is because she could have possibly done this before and she could have always came back. Fransico just assumed that maybe she wasn't in any danger. Maybe she just kind of wanted to take a break from her life. Or maybe she would eventually come back. Or like he said, he shouldn't bother reporting her because she's an adult.
Yeah, I do agree with what you have said, because the fact that the police did not really care that much whenever he reported her missing. Veronica is Hispanic, and there's definitely like a lack of support in the Hispanic community with the police department. That's probably why he didn't go there, and he does in many interviews mention that sometimes Veronica would come and go, and maybe he still did think that Veronica was with her friend. Did Fransico actually go fishing after her disappearance? I do find it a little bit weird after he found that his spouse was missing that morning that he just kind of brushed it off and he was like, okay, I'm gonna fish from 10 a.m. to 12 a.m. That's an awfully long time to go fishing. I know in like Florida, some people will fish all day, but that amount of time seems a little bit obscure. If Fransico could have been involved in any way, this would have bought him time and like he could have went and got rid of the evidence, but we still don't know if he was actually involved.
Personally, don't think I would go fishing after realizing my wife was missing. I would be out there searching for her, calling maybe private detectives to try and figure out where she went. So it is a little weird. Why did Francisco lie about the shirt Veronica was wearing that night? It's possible that it might not have been a lie. He may have gotten confused with his days, or he could have possibly thought she was wearing another shirt when in reality she was wearing a different shirt than what she was wearing that night. It happens all the time, especially when people go missing. Sometimes you forget the smallest of details or you mix them up with other details.
Yeah, it is possible that it could have just simply been he just forgot what shirt she was wearing. But it is interesting how both the sister and her friend claim that she was wearing a gray striped shirt. Meanwhile, what Francisco found in the car whenever he was looking for her, he found a flower shirt. That's kind of weird. She could have also changed clothes as well.
Yeah, it's very possible. She could have easily changed clothes and he didn't know it. I mean, people do that a lot, especially us women. We just decide, I don't want to wear this outfit. I'm going to change it into something different.
And if she did also change clothes, maybe it could have been that there was somebody sex trafficking her. Why did Veronica's phone stop pinging a week after her disappearance? So some context to this is that the police went to ping her phone and they found it pinged somewhere near her house, but they couldn't pinpoint where. They kept getting like activity from it, and then it suddenly stopped after a week. This is very bizarre. This makes me think it had to be someone very close to her or around her, maybe even a neighbor. It still kept going off, and then why did it shut off after a week? Because with phone batteries, it only lasts anywhere from a few hours to a couple days. So someone had to have a charger for that type of phone.
It's very possible somebody could have had a charger for her phone, but it's still very strange that her phone didn't stop ringing until a week after she disappeared. Could Veronica's husband have been involved in her disappearance? Anything is possible in this case as to who could have been involved in her disappearance, but it's very suspicious that he didn't remember exactly what shirt she was wearing that night, and that he went fishing after he found out that she was missing, and the fact that he also waited 2 days to report her body, he wasn't that concerned. It does definitely make him look a little bit suspicious as far as her disappearing. This could have been something that happened before.
There's multiple reasons why I heavily do think that her husband could have been involved, and even multiple people do believe this theory. Her husband wanted Veronica to quit her job at Taco Bell to stay home and take care of the kids, and Veronica really didn't want to stay home and take care of the kids. I know it's kind of easier sometimes, but he was known to be very controlling. Also, he had multiple girlfriends back to back, which is kind of odd. The father later on ended up finding out their relationship, they had many arguments. He thought that their relationship was actually really good, rainbows and sunshine, but his dad uncovered that Francisco was very manipulative and very controlling. They've gotten into arguments before. The night that she went missing, Francisco was constantly bugging her on her phone while she was out with her friend. She couldn't enjoy the time out with her friend. That's very toxic. Some other key clues that point it possibly towards the husband being involved is going fishing for several hours after you find out your wife's missing. You just don't randomly go fishing for that long of a time. I would be searching for my spouse if my spouse was missing like that. I would not go fishing and brush it off. And the fact he waited 2 days to tell the family anything about her missing is just very odd. Phone pinging somewhere near her house. He doesn't know what shirt she's wearing. And it couldn't have been the sister because the neighbors actually have some surveillance video footage. And basically it's video footage when Mariah went to pick up Veronica so that they could go out to Chili's, and Mariah dropping Veronica back off at home to go get her car so then she can go pick up her 2 kids from her sister's house. She does that, and then the last video is of Veronica going inside the house. There's no video footage of Veronica leaving again. The police waited months to interview the little boys, and the little boys could be told to say anything. Fransico and Veronica had a court date. It was supposed to be a week after she went missing. They had this court date set so that Fransico could adopt these children. So it is very odd that Veronica went missing shortly before this time. Could a neighbor have been involved in Veronica's disappearance? It is possible that anyone could be involved because the area that Veronica was living in was known to be a really shady area. There was multiple other women like her that have gone missing. And the fact that her phone pinged near her house, it could still be a neighbor or somebody she knew.
Yeah, she could have had somebody who secretly had their eyes on her, or maybe her neighbor. Possibly sex trafficking. Sex trafficking is very common anywhere, especially in the area that she was living as well. They could be anybody that you don't expect.
Yeah, she was also 23 at the time she went missing. When you're 23 years old, you're young, you're pretty. Who knows who went after her?
Why is there brand new furniture in Veronica's house? It is very suspicious that there was brand new carpets, brand new furniture after Veronica's disappearance. They could have gotten rid of the carpet and the furniture to hide something that was going on in that house. If there's any explanation that could be for the new furniture in her house and all that stuff, but it is very odd and it just points a little more suspicion towards the husband.
Yeah, I think it's a bit shady that the fact whenever police went to investigate, and I don't know why they took so long to investigate the house, but when they went to investigate the house, the carpets were replaced and new furniture. Easily her husband could have hid something, even if he didn't purposely kill her. Maybe they got an argument that went too far and it was an accident. It could also be maybe he doesn't want to be reminded too much about Veronica because it could be kind of hard for him because the fact that she's gone. But I do still find it weird with all the other clues that we have. Anytime there is a scene, you should never go and replace everything. So evidence was very easily destroyed in this case. Why did it take so long for the police to do an investigation? That is what I do not understand. I personally believe that the police should have really taken this case more serious in the beginning because they could have potentially caught the suspect. I think with Florida, there's so many people, and the fact that she's older, maybe they thought that this case was going to just end up being just a mother that just needed a break, and she went to stay at a hotel for a few days, a nice getaway. Maybe that's what they thought it was going to end up being like. But I don't understand why it took them so many months to do an investigation, and why did it take them 4 months to ask the little boys questions. The story could have totally just been altered
I think it's pretty ridiculous, especially in a missing persons case, for the police to take as long as they did in the investigation. But I feel like they didn't take it seriously enough. Like, they thought that maybe she had just run away and that she would maybe eventually come back. They definitely thought that she would never come back, and they decided this case is not as much of a priority as other cases. So they decided to kind of put her case on the back burner until it was time for them to come back around to it and actually do an investigation.
It's crazy too because I don't think that anyone would just go and leave their kids straight up. So I definitely do believe that Veronica was taken against her own will because she did definitely love her kids a lot. This makes me really disappointed in the Florida Police Department. And a lot of people have mentioned as well that unfortunately, especially Hispanic people, there's just not a lot of coverage for them because they're not blonde hair and blue eyes.
Is she still alive? I feel like it's a very, very slim chance that she could be alive at this point, especially if she was murdered or taken by somebody. But even if she was sex trafficked, it's a very, very slight chance that she could still be alive. Her family hopes, and we all hope that she is still alive, but unfortunately, in most cases like this, eventually we do find out the truth. Most of the time, it doesn't have a good outcome like we hope for it to be.
Yeah, I think the longer someone is missing, and she's been missing for 2 years now, that the less likely that person is still alive. It's hard to take in for some people, but I do not believe Veronica is still alive. I believe that someone took her against her own will and she is dead. I hope that they're able to find the truth somewhere and get closure at least. Could Veronica and the Sia Taylor case be related? So some context with this is Sia Taylor was also a Hispanic girl that lived about 15 minutes away from Veronica, and she was also missing in an odd way. Her car was found by the railroad tracks. All her belongings about her phone wasn't there either. These cases could be related. There could actually be a serial killer out there. It's very odd that these cases happen very close to each other. Like the distance was close and also the time was very close. So I do think that there is a possibility that these cases could be related and that there is a serial killer out there in Florida and that the police department needs to find this person. But also it could just be a weird coincidence.
Not just that, but they also look very similar as far as their facial features. Not just the fact that they're Hispanic, but their facial features are also very, very similar. So it could have been somebody who had a certain type of woman that he was into that could have very easily abducted these women.
Yeah, I agree. They almost look like sisters to me whenever I saw the picture. It could very easily be some crazy serial killer out there that has a certain type of woman that they like. Florida is a pretty big state, and unfortunately, because Veronica didn't come from the richest family and mobile parks and stuff like that, there are sometimes some really bad people out there, and it's very unfortunate. And I think with this case, we need to definitely push for people that are missing that people don't know about, because there was actually not a whole lot of information except for some YouTube videos and podcasts about this. There was a lot less coverage about this case than many other cases I have covered, and I think there needs to be a lot more awareness towards just normal people as well that end up missing. We shouldn't just focus on certain people. I think everybody deserves an equal amount of coverage.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Murders, Mysteries, and More. Remember to always keep your eyes open. You never know when someone's watching.